Hey, today I'm going to talk about why I think the Game Boy Advance is the best portable game system ever. Now, so let's travel back to the late 90s when the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color were still popular, but people were getting bored with playing those games and they wanted something new. They wanted something more advanced. So Nintendo decided to design the Game Boy Advance, and they released it in the year 2001. And I remember when I saw this first time at EB Games in the mall, and I saw it around like this guy's neck. He was wearing like a lanyard with the Game Boy around it, and he was working at the EB Games. I was like, "What is that?" And he told me it was the new Game Boy Advance. I was like, "Oh my God, can I see you play it, or can I try it?" And he let me try it. And he had two games. He had Super Mario Advance and Tony Hawk. And at first the first one I played was Super Mario Advance. And I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, I couldn't believe the graphics were this good. I was like, damn, this graphics have come so far since the Game Boy Color. And I was just used to playing Game Boy Color. I just thought that was like the normal graphic. That's how good portable graphics would always be. And I was like, damn, this is really nice. So then I tried Tony Hawk, and I was used to playing Tony Hawk on PlayStation. So I was like, this is also fun. It wasn't as fun as Mario Advance, but it was still pretty sweet to see Tony Hawk on the small screen, the way they were able to get like that angle from the top instead of from behind Tony Hawk, and they fitted in the Game Boy Advance. I was like, all right, these graphics are really awesome. I want to get one of these. And I don't even know if it was available at the time, but I definitely got it right after it was released. So let's talk a little bit about the library on the Game Boy Advance. So, I mean, what good is a system without the library? They designed the Game Boy Advance to be about as powerful as a Super Nintendo. So what they did was they ported a bunch of Super Nintendo games to the Game Boy Advance to show off the system. So we got Donkey Kong Country, for example. They ported a Game Boy Advance. We have Final Fight 1. Awesome beat 'em up. We have Zelda, the Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, and this has like a bonus game, Four Swords. It's one of the best games of all time. We have Yoshi's Island from the Super Nintendo. And then we have F-Zero, which this is actually kind of like a remake, but it's very similar to the original F-Zero. But then, I'm not saying that the original Game Boy Advance library isn't good by any means. I mean, that also has a lot of great exclusive games. Like Mario Tennis Power Tour is awesome for Game Boy Advance. There's Wario Land 4. There's Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, fun game. Mario Kart Super Circuit, which is also similar to the Super Nintendo Mario Kart, but even better. And then there's also Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which is one of the best Castlevania games. So not only does the Game Boy Advance play great Game Boy Advance games and great Game Boy Advance games that are Super Nintendo ports, but it's backwards compatible with Game Boy and Game Boy Color. That increases the Game Boy Advance library from about 1,500 games all the way up to 3,000 games. So, because you could plug in Game Boy Advance or Game Boy and Game Boy Color games into the back of the Game Boy Advance. It'll stick out a little bit, but you could still play them fine. I'm not even going to get into how awesome those two libraries are. So yeah, 3,000 games on the Game Boy Advance. That's a pretty sweet library you have going on there, and there's a lot of great gems in there. Now let's talk about the revisions that Nintendo made to the Game Boy Advance, because they just weren't happy with the way that the original Game Boy Advance was. A lot of people were complaining they couldn't see the screen. You had to get one of these worm lights that stick out of the top, and you have to like hold it in a certain angle, or you have to go outside into the sunlight, and you can't shine it right in the sun, or it's too bright. And then it was kind of a mess. I mean, the console, the games are awesome, but it was just really hard to play on the screen. So what Nintendo did was they're like, all right, we hear what you're saying. Check this out. Game Boy Advance SP. You got your backlight screen now, and that's not good enough. You know what else we're going to do? We're going to throw in a rechargeable battery. That's right. No more of these stupid AA batteries you got to look for and buy at the store and throw away, and they end up in a landfill, and they destroy the world. No, this thing is rechargeable. And I'm not talking about rechargeable like something from the Game Gear where you plug in the batteries and it'll last for an hour. No, this thing lasts for like 5 hours or more. I can't remember the exact amount, but it lasts a while. So now you have the Game Boy Advance SP with one of the best libraries. You got this new backlit screen. You got the rechargeable batteries. How can it get any better than this, right? Nintendo's like, you know what? We're going to give you an even brighter screen now. The Game Boy Advance SP with the brighter screen. So they took, I mean, this wasn't even necessary, but they were just showing off at this point. They're like, here, take a brighter screen. And this, if you need to buy one portable system, if you can only own one portable console, get the Game Boy Advance SP with the brighter screen. This has everything you ever need from all the portable games from the year 1990 until the year 2005, like 15 years. This can do everything. So just get one of these, call it a day. You don't need to get a separate Game Boy Color. You don't need to get a separate old school Game Boy. You don't need the original Game Boy Advance. Just get this. I think it's like $60 or something, and you'll be happy. So then on top of that, Nintendo was like, you know what? We're going to give you something even smaller now. They gave us the Game Boy Micro, and this was, I'm not really a huge fan of this thing. It was kind of a flop. It was only out for like a few months, but it's still cool to have in my collection. So this is the Game Boy Micro. You see, it's just kind of difficult to play that screen because it's so tiny, and that's my one fault with it. Otherwise, it's a pretty cool little portable system. But yeah, when you combine that, all the technological advancements of the Game Boy Advance and that 3,000 game library, that's what makes the Game Boy Advance the best portable of all time. Do you agree? What do you think? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.